I had a distressing near-death experience 26 years ago. It came about because I had been caregiving for a very dear friend who had leukemia, and we all had to come from various parts of the United States, two caregivers and him and me, to Seattle, Washington, where they had a research hospital, and they were going to try and he was a guinea pig, all right. So it's really kind of cool that research hospitals how they will try last ditch efforts, and if the patient doesn't make it, at least they have furthered the research, and so that was something he was interested in doing. It was supposed to take 2 or 3 months, and it drug out to almost 9 months. And it's a situation where he would be better and then he would get worse, and the caregiver and I took turns running back and forth to the hospital to have somebody with him all the time, and we all got very run down, and he died. And it was just a total shock. I mean, he was only 53. He had been in wonderful health, and now he's gone. So I had been working part-time uh, in the last stages because we knew at one point he wasn't getting better. So I had not been taking good care of myself, and I picked up a terrible flu that was going around, very much like COVID. And very short order, I found myself in a emergency room. I was put into a drug-induced coma. My family were called out. They said she has about a 38% chance of making it. We just don't know how to treat this. So, boom, there I am at 52 thinking, well, I had no choice. So I said, okay, let's do this. And I asked the doctor about it, what's going to happen? And he says, just don't worry about it. Your brain will go offline. You won't be able to remember anything. Okay. You're just going to be in this deep, 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 deep sleep. So I said goodbye to the folks and my family, and it all, I just went into a coma. And then I woke up. And I thought, wait a minute. What's going on? It's pitch black, no sound. It's like being in a closet or something. And I thought, "Oh, what in the world?" And I was afraid to move because I didn't know if I was laying down or sitting or what. And I thought, well, I'll just hang out. There's nothing really happening. But then it did start to happen. And there was this reddish glow that started. And I thought maybe the sun was coming up and I could see where I was. But then it got really too warm. It started smelling terrible, and I could hear these people moaning and shrieking through this fog. And I thought, what is going on? And all of a sudden, out of this fog came this awful voice and said, do you know where you are? And
What?
I said, hell, what else could I come up with? And then this horrible maniacal laugh happened, scared me, I would say to death, but I was probably already there. And I just turned and ran into the darkness, Cameron. I just didn't know what else to do. I finally got to a point where I just stopped in the dark and waiting. And then what happened was a series of segments. It would be pitch dark, and then all of a sudden these two bright lights would come up, and I would be in a scenario. The first one was a bombed out city. It was like New York with God only knows what had happened there. The buildings were falling over. There were fires. There's people screaming and running in the streets. I'm all of a sudden just in the middle of this, and I thought, wow, So I tried to like tuck myself in between two big old things of concrete that had fallen over, and there was weird people wandering around, and there was mechanical, like I don't like robot things roaming. I thought, holy cow, aliens! What do we got here? And so I thought I'd try and make a run for it to get away from some of these very bizarre people, and tried to crawl up this big thing full of concrete, and I got almost to the top, and my fingers lost purchase, and I fell backwards in the darkness, and I thought, oh man, this is going to hurt. And then it was just completely dark, and the lights came up, and I'd find myself in a totally different place. So this happened a lot. One particularly surprising one was the lights came up and I'm looking at some creature's belly, and as I looked up, I thought, "Holy cow," it was like a Bigfoot or something, but it was mean looking and it had a big stick, and I just froze, and it said, "Do you wanna get out of here?" And I thought, "Gee, that was perfect English." I expected some sort of grunting noise. And I said, "Yes, I do." And he says, "Well, I got a job for you." And I said, "A job?" And he says, "Yeah, I got you. You do one thing for me, I'll see you get out." And I thought, well, what do I got to lose, right? So I said, "Okay, sure." So he waves his arm, and as far as you can see is this jungle of blackberry vines, all twisted and, 10 feet tall, as far as you could see. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And he hands me these little paper cutting scissors they give kids in kindergarten and says, "Just cut it down and and I'll see you get out." And he kind of chuckled, and I thought, this is a big joke and it's not funny, you know? So I just thought, what the heck? I got nothing else to do. So I started gnawing on one of these canes. I finally got it to break off, and I thought, good grief. I went to put it behind me, and when I turned back around, the darn thing just grew all the way back. And I looked up at this demon guy, and I just gave him a look, and he just started laughing. He thought that was hysterical. And I thought, you know what? This is weird, and I don't think this is going to work. So I thought, I got nothing else to do. So I started cutting again, and the lights went out. Then the lights came up, and I'm someplace completely different. There was a terrible scene in a hospital. There was a terrible scene on the road. The road, that was when the lights would come up, and it would be dark, but it would be dusk, and there was no moon, no stars, no nothing. It just looked like you were on the moon. It was just this barely rocky thing, but you could tell there was kind of a road, and it went left and right. And at the horizon, there was like glowing things, like a fire maybe coming up over the top of it. And I thought, wow, So I thought, well, I'll just take a right, get on the road. It's got to go somewhere, right? And the good thing about it was when I was on the road, I could turn around and look and see if any, creatures were sneaking up on me and stuff. But it was a long way. And I spent a lot of time just walking, 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 wondering what was going on. How was I going to get out? Where in the heck was I? And then a scene would startle me, and I would have to, try and protect myself or just survive long enough to find a way out. I did see, which is unusual, two live people in two situations. That's very rare. Generally, if you're having a near-death experience, it's not unusual to see uh, people that have passed. But there's a lady now that's doing a book on people who do see living What happened is when I got back, um, I knew I had to tell these people, I had to give them a message that was just very, very, it was very, I was very sure of that what I had seen, the scenes that they were in were relevant to something that was happening in their lives, and I needed to give them a message so they could make the right decision. I gave the messages to both of these people, which is always interesting to say, I was in hell, I saw you there, and that's a showstopper right there. So it was difficult to get these uh, messages out. The first person, they were both relatives. The first person was freaked out, didn't like the message, didn't like what it was inferring, and we haven't talked in 26 years. So the other person, it took a
Wow.
while to unravel, but that's what the bottom line was. And then the other person was a little distressed when I talked to her about her present relationship situation. And about a year later, I saw her at a Christmas get together for the family, and she came up and handed me a glass of wine and says, "Okay, tell me that again." And I did, and she says, "You know what?" She says, I couldn't get that out of my mind, what you told me, and I went ahead and took the chance that what you said was the right thing to do, and I can't tell you how happy I am. I was losing myself, my identity. It was a disaster, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. I can't tell you enough. So, 50-50. But then again, on the road, ran into a really nasty group of zombies at one point, was beaten up, molested, whatever. Uh, then got into a situation with some other poor females like myself, and this demon lady led us out through a tundra in a snowstorm. We got to a shack in the middle of freaking nowhere. Cold as hell is a real thing. Uh, and, and we got in this shack, and we're all shivering, and you're just shell shocked, and just sitting there. And she's okay. Now we wait for customers, and we thought, oh, I thought, oh, how much worse can this possibly be? I'd felt like I'd been there for years, at least 2 years. And she says, oh, well, it's Christmas on Earth. That's always the worst day in hell. And I
Really?
thought, what? What? You don't feel dead, all right? I mean, your spirit is you. So just because you drop the body, the car you drive around in, doesn't mean you're not you. So I thought, I couldn't believe it. Wait a minute. I don't belong here. This isn't right. So I got mad, and I started singing a Christmas carol because I knew it would bug her, and it did. And she told me to shut up. And then some of the other girls, ladies, saw that that was disturbing her, so they joined in. So we're singing Away in a Manger, no crib for his bed, the little Lord, and we got to almost that next word, and she leapt at me screaming, shut up, and I just closed my eyes again. I thought, well, at least I'll get out of here. I don't know where I'm going to go next. But boom, all of a sudden it's like really different, eh, joy, bliss, unexplainable,
Hmm.
complete. You can't explain it. It's ineffable. Fabulous. I'm swirling in this love and it just joy and everything, and then it's kind of settled down a little bit, and it's just beautiful. It's all kind of white and sparkly, and kind of, I don't know. It's just really hard to explain, but I was just thrilled. I still didn't know what happened to me, but I knew this was good. And I looked up, and I saw my friend who just died the month before, and I thought, wait a minute, when you die of leukemia, it's not pretty, no hair and you're blotchy, and oh, anyway, he looked great, and he didn't look 30. His age, he looked about 35. He was happy. He was wearing a sweater I gave him for Christmas. I mean, I knew who this was. And he's looking at me and he's kind of chuckling. And I thought, oh, shoot, I don't want to be the one to tell him he's dead, And he starts laughing. And I thought, wait a minute, I didn't say that out loud. Wow, if he's dead, two and two, I'm dead? Oh, wow. Is that the best news ever or what? So I'm saying, why are we standing here? Come on, show me around. He got a little closer and he goes, nah, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. Huh? You know, no, I don't think so. I just said no, 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 no. And then boom, lights went out, lights come up. There's all these people milling around. I'm too hot. I can't move. I'm thinking, oh, what a word I want to use here. I am back in hell. And all of a sudden, this person gets closer to me and says, Mom's back. And I thought, what? And it's my daughter and my mom and dad and they're all screaming, and I'm thinking, what's going on? I couldn't react. And they said, now, Mom, she says, you've been in a coma for almost 3 weeks. They told us you probably weren't going to make it. And my mom says, oh, we had this prayer circle going around the world. We brought you back. And I thought, oh, you terrible people. Oh no, just tore me out of heaven. What were you
Oh.
thinking? And thank God I couldn't talk. I had the trach and the whole bit. And so I was back. And I'm laying there thinking, you got too much left to do. You can't breathe. You can't move. This is going to be a challenge, and I just want to be back there. I don't want to be here.